Hello there. As you watch this, you may be spitting feathers because Boris Johnson has just officially extended the pandemic restrictions. As per usual, please like, subscribe and comment below. So, many people will now be dropping their shoulders at the news that this lockdown-happy government has decided to keep England under COVID restrictions for another few weeks. The official unlocking date has been moved right from the 21st of June to the 19th of July, although Boris would have caused a bit of cardiac arrest around the country when he mistakenly said the 29th of July. I could hear jaws drop across the land. And the premise is that the delay will save thousands of lives because ICU cases are rising and the danger is the virus could outrun the vax. So we need to give the NHS crucial weeks to deal with it, he said. We have taken the pharmakeia, we have stayed at home, we have been compliant, but still it continues. Millions of people are now facing utter destitution, unable to pay their rents or mortgages. Will you, Boris, personally step in and guarantee an income for them, which will protect all they have worked for and match their pre-lockdown earnings, like you have for nurses? Or are private sector workers and business owners lower down the pecking order in your version of libertarianism? Although we all knew this was coming, it will still be a blow to many thousands of businesses, and for some it will be a mortal blow. But this extension could easily lead to another lost Christmas, as the weather turns colder later this year and the scientists and experts once again queue up with their projections and models to demand more lockdown while they await the outcome of yet more data. And those previously relying on government largesse during lockdown may start feeling icy fingers run down their spine when they learn that Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor, is still planning to start unwinding the furlough scheme as of the 1st of July. The temporary social security scheme is set to begin phasing out from July the 1st and end on September the 30th, only partially covering the expected new longer unlocking, reports The Independent. And Keir Starmer's Labour Party is reportedly right behind the Tories on this lockdown extension. When it comes to really standing up for the people or actually doing some opposing, Starmer is like that piece of wet lettuce found at the back of the fridge, not old enough to throw, nor palatable enough to eat. And the only dim light the PM could offer was that there would be some relaxations on limits of people attending events in some areas, and the government reserves the right to end the restrictions early based on the data. But the data only ever seems to say one thing, doesn't it? Moving on. Right. Just so you know, the Boris Johnson Tory government is about to drive another wedge firmly between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And this time it's by design, using UK statute law. So much for Boris Johnson's words at the G7 of Northern Ireland being part of one united country. There is a new bill going through Parliament, the Animal Welfare Kept Animals Bill. And this brings in some laudable measures, such as tightening down on the keeping, breeding and selling of primates, as well as updating the law on dogs attacking or worrying livestock. But it also deals with the export of livestock, and here is where Northern Ireland is once again excluded as a true integral part of the UK. For a start, the clause only prohibits the live export of animals if they're going to be slaughtered or fattened for slaughter, or there is a reasonable belief that that is what will happen to them. So presumably live transport for breeding can continue. But the important bit here is the new law only applies to Great Britain. That is, it only applies to England, Scotland and Wales. because Northern Ireland is still in the EU single market and subject to the Irish Border Protocol. It is once again being treated differently to the rest of the UK. So not only can't we send some food products from Great Britain to Northern Ireland, soon we will also not be able to send them livestock to slaughter if they want it. And this will be enshrined in UK statute law. Section 42 of this new bill says, 1. A person may not export relevant livestock from Great Britain for slaughter. And as Northern Ireland is not in Great Britain, it means livestock cannot be transported to Northern Ireland from Great Britain for fattening or for slaughtering. Looking at the figures from Farming Life, live cattle imports for direct slaughter from Great Britain, 46 prime cattle and 409 cows during the first half of 2020, back from 357 prime cattle and 1,523 cows during the same period in 2019. Doesn't sound much, but it's the whole concept of treating Northern Ireland as a separate country from the rest of the UK that should concern all loyalists and pro-UK unionists. And it seems that the UK government is shouting one thing from the hilltops while practising a deep deception. A deception that could see the UK broken up. And the bill is presented by the Environment Secretary George Eustice and backed by the PM Boris Johnson as well as Michael Gove. Surely this is UK state-sanctioned diversion of trade that plays directly into the hands of the EU post-Brexit negotiators. Does it mean that if we are agreeing with some of the restrictions of the protocol in our own statute law, then we have to impose all that Brussels demands? And it also reinforces the argument adopted by the government lawyers in the Ben Habib Protocol judicial review case that the people of Northern Ireland are now second-class UK citizens due to the claimed implied repeal of Article 6 of the Act of Union 1800. Whatever the Boris public outbursts about this whole Northern Ireland protocol, it seems that it's being used by the UK and Brussels to completely change the Northern Ireland supply chain network away from the UK to be Republic of Ireland and EU based. And the fight back from the Conservative and Unionist Party is all hot air. And the question has to be asked, is this all a devious backdoor wheeze to unify Ireland? Because this new law does not seem to be enhancing the UK's territorial integrity, something that Boris has been harping on about for the last couple of days. Now, some people will inevitably point out that Irish farmland, both north and south, meanders back and forth across the border in places, meaning some fields are split between being in the UK and being in the EU, which means cows and the like will wander innocently across the border a few times every day. And also that stopping livestock movements going south across the border for slaughter or fattening could require a hard border that could inflame tensions, but I'm not so sure about that. But once again, the UK has to be seen to be the one giving ground, just to protect the EU single market for them, because Brussels obviously has no interest in keeping the peace. And remember the 2019 Tory manifesto, where it talked about imposing a live animal export ban on a UK-wide basis? From free ports to free trade deals, from abolishing the cruel live shipment of animals to cutting VAT on tampons, we in the UK will be able to remain close to our European friends and partners, but where we choose, we will be able to do things differently and better. That's one manifesto pledge missed then, Boris. It'll be interesting to hear what the DUP MPs have to say about this. But at least that so-called war on British bangers entering Northern Ireland appears to be a bit of a damp squib. There had been much consternation when it transpired that the EU will stop the rest of the UK sending chilled meats and things like sausages to Northern Ireland. But the Telegraph is reporting today that Northern Ireland's most popular supermarkets will be unharmed by any EU ban on British bangers, because they have already been sourcing their meats from within Northern Ireland for years. So maybe this is one of those political spats where the politicians show you a supposedly intractable problem today and a stunning victory tomorrow. All smoke and mirrors. So what's your opinion on the lockdown and the ban on live animal exports for slaughter? Please like and comment below.